Hello, darlings. How are you? It's so funny. I want to wear stuff, but I can't. And it's really hard to put on makeup with. Yeah, doesn't really work. And it's so ironic that I would break my arm this week when we're talking about flow states and grit and resiliency. And my hair is a mess because I can't straighten it or do it. And you have all these thoughts all the time. And then on top of having 80% negative crazy thoughts, like I have to do my hair in order to show up, and makeup is what makes me look nice, and my clothes are so important to my presentation giving skills, right? How do you still continue to do the things that you need to do, that you want to do, that goals that you've set out to do, even when life brings you broken arms? Okay, I'll be super honest with y'all. It feels really good, but it's still broke, right? So today, what I'm actually going to do for you guys is I'm going to read you a little something something. So I sent you all an email with the little gift that I have, The Art of Impossible. Basically, when you download the ebook, it'll look like this on your phone or a tablet, whatever device you use on your computer. There's also the audiobook. You can listen to it. And to get you excited today, I'm going to keep teaching from the man himself, Stephen Kotler. And I'm going to read you the chapter on grit. But then we're going to bring it all together, like I promised you, in the idea of radical self-love. So what is grit? No pressure, no diamonds. Scottish philosopher Thomas Carlyle said that 300 years ago, it was true then, it's still true now. What Carlyle means is excellence has a cost. This challenge of sustained high performance is the grind. So even if you harness the full suite of intrinsic drivers and turbo boost the results with proper goal setting, it's still not going to be enough. And this is exactly why grit matters so much. Grit is motivation writ large, not just the energy it takes to push through a difficult task, but the energy needed to push through years of difficult tasks. Without the ability of tough out the hard times, you'll rarely get anywhere worth going. Think of it this way. Intrinsic motivation launches you down the path of peak performance. Proper goal setting helps define that path, and grit is what keeps you going on despite the odds and obstacles. Yet most people think of grit as a single skill. We say, she's a gritty athlete, or he's a gritty scientist, as if that explained everything. The actual truth is a little more complicated. When psychologists describe grit, they often lean upon University of Pennsylvania psychologist Angela Duckworth's definition of the trait, the intersection of passion and perseverance. Yet, as helpful as this definition is, it may not take us far enough. If you speak to peak performers, they often describe 6 different types of perseverance that they regularly train. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Next up, the neuroscientists. When neuroscientists talk about grit, their discussion focuses on the prefrontal cortex, or the part of the brain that sits right behind the forehead. This prefrontal cortex controls most of our higher cognitive functions, including both goal-directed behavior and self-regulation. The term goal-directed behavior covers all of the different actions required to complete one's goal. Self-regulation sits downstream from there. It's how we feel and what we do with those feelings on our way to accomplishing those goals. In other words, self-regulation is both the ability to control our emotions and the ability to persist through challenging, strenuous tasks. Neurobiologically, these 2 attributes are a recipe for grit. In functional magnetic resonance imaging, MRIs, studies, these attributes show up in a very particular way. People who have trouble with grit have a higher amount of spontaneous resting state activity in their right dorsal medial prefrontal cortex. Grittier people have less. This part of the brain helps govern both self-regulation and long-term planning. But to understand why it quiets down in gritty people, we also need to know more about the relationship between dopamine and persistence. In the last chapter, we learned that whenever we accomplish a hard task, dopamine is our reward. In this chapter, we want to build on this idea. Seeing that if we accomplish hard tasks over and over again, the brain starts to connect the feeling of persistence with dopamine, reward to come. We're making the act of tapping into our emotional reservoir a habit. This automation may be the reason that the dorsal medial prefrontal cortex stays quiet in gritty people. Once the emotional fortitude required for digging deep becomes a habit, we can dig deep without having to think about it. So the part of the brain required to think about it doesn't have to get involved. What does it take to train these resilient reward loops? If you ask peak performers these questions, they don't answer it all like the scientists. Psychologists tend to talk about the intersection of passion and perseverance. Neuroscientists focus on the prefrontal cortex. Yet elite performers cast a much wider net. If you ask them this question, you get 6 different answers. 6 types of peak performers regularly work to improve. For sustained high performance and high achievement, you need all 6. There are no shortcuts. Each of these grit skills has to be trained up independently. We'll take them one at a time. The grit to persevere. The next skill, and I'm not going to read all of this to you, but it's all available in this book that I sent to you guys, is willpower. And then we also have mindset, passion. Sorry, I'm skipping pages. The grit, oh, I'm so sorry, the grit to persevere. So those were the subcategories in that. Then there's the grit to control, which includes your thoughts, self-talk, gratitude, and mindfulness. The grit to master fear. And you know what, you guys, this is all in the book, so I'm not actually going to go through all of these, as this is kind of just an intro class. But the one part that I actually am going to talk about today is radical self-love, right? And we learned that, again, our self-talk and our thoughts set the foundation for absolutely everything we do. Whether we're trying to create a huge new business launch project, whether we're doing a course that we've never done before, whether we're just trying to find our purpose and see if we're living it or tapping into it, whether we're about to go through or possibly thinking about making huge life moves, changing locations and directions, partnerships, possibly making new moves, new jobs. At first, we're always going to get this spark of inspiration, some kind of energy that starts and begins to drive us. But ultimately, there's going to be days where things don't go our way, right? And how do we continue to show up for ourselves, no matter what we're going through? And the foundation for this, now I've been coaching with a few of you one-on-one, and we've all had these big one-on-one shifts, especially during our coaching sessions. I know that sometimes we'll start off and, we'll be like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on. And by the end of it, we're giggling and feeling so much better. And then it kind of wears off when we're on our own, right? What happens in those one-on-one coaching sessions when we really come together is that I help you navigate the road of your own self-talk to yourself. And sometimes in between coaching sessions, life comes at us, right? Broken arms, circumstances. Something's way more serious than broken arms. And we just simply forget that tool that we created within our coaching conversations, that positive self-talk to ourselves, that foundation of I am loved, I am enough, I am worthy, no matter these circumstances, is what actually equalizes the equilibrium within our bodies, emotionally speaking. And in this way, we can actually set our goals, be they huge launches in our business and creating new programs, and to the point where we know what we're doing and what solutions we want to have in our lives, or be they tiny, like, hey, I just need to love on myself a little bit more. No matter how big or small your goal is, the grit work is the same when it comes to your self-talk. And when it comes to your thoughts, on those hard days, what are thoughts that you can have, maybe written down in the piece of paper in a journal that you can always flip to and remind yourself that you are worthy, that you are enough, that it is okay for you to show up for yourself, that even if you don't feel like you know your passion today, that you believe in the possibility of discovering your passion and that it too is okay. What if you're working on a big business launch and all the thoughts are coming up about how am I going to get this project done? And I don't know enough. And am I good enough to deliver this? And I'm not sure what to say. What are going to be the words that you tell yourself when you actually say, no, you know what? I'm going to do the damn thing. I'm going to sit down today and I'm going to film my video. I'm not going to go do the other 15 things that are running through my head. What does it take for us to be in that moment of indecision when something really tough is happening to us in life and wanting to avoid it and deciding, should I go one way or should I go another way? To have our own backs no matter what decision we make. That no matter what I do, whether I choose the right fork or the left fork, I am enough. Nothing has gone wrong. This too is a journey of life and it is okay. For some of us, grit might be, yes, I have to sit down and I have to film this video, even though I'd much rather be in bed, on the couch, watching Netflix with a tub of ice cream. And I'm going to sit down and do it anyways. And as I sit down and I start doing it, I'm so full with joy in ways that the ice cream would never bring me joy. For some of us, it might be I've calendared 15 minutes of ecstatic dance in my schedule 3 times a week to show myself that I love myself and experience and be in the present moment and explore my body and dance and feel. And yet, when that 15-minute time frame comes up, we don't want to get up. We don't want to dance. We feel lousy. We don't feel like we deserve to feel our bodies or express ourselves. What words can we say to ourselves right there and then in that moment to say, I am enough. I am free to dance. I will get up even though I don't feel like it. This is the power of grit. It's that conversation that you're going to have in your own brain over and over and over for the rest of your life when it comes time to making a decision, doing tough things. Sometimes that tough thing is just recognizing how amazing and wonderful and worthy you yourself are and reminding yourself that. That's where grit comes in. Even though the whole world is telling me that I'm small and that I can't do this and that I'm not loved and this is too hard, I'm going to get gritty and I'm going to show the world otherwise. I am enough. I can choose these thoughts to be enough, to feel enough, to love myself enough. To show up for me. And as I show up for me and fill myself with that love, who else can I show up for, even when it's tough? And in that moment, there's a profound healing that happens, a profound flow state that occurs where the words that just came through me, that's flow. I didn't plan that this way, but I love you all so much. And I want you to see yourself as enough as you are. No makeup, broken elbows, funny outfits. We are enough. And so when you get past the grit of a tough day and you get your butt in the seat and you start filming that, recording that, what words can come through? What can you do? What state can you enter? On the other side of grit, on that other side of pressure is always the diamonds, always. We spend so much time avoiding getting gritty, but I promise you all, the grittiness of self-love is the most powerful exercise that you could ever do. To force yourself over and over again and exercise that muscle of choosing love towards you will be the most powerful skill and tool I will ever teach you all, whether it's in this program or in a longer coaching container. where we work one-on-one for a year together, we will always come back to you are enough. That place beyond you that's connected to all things, all beings, infinity, space, time, without limit, that creates enoughness that dwells within all of us, that creates us. That is our foundation. And if you can exercise your grit to take you to that foundation more and more and more and more often, every other exercise in this program will become so freaking easy, y'all. I promise you that. My heart goes out to you, ladies. I love you. You are enough. Let's get gritty with it. Ooh, I can do this. Namaste. I love you so much. I'll see you group coaching on Sunday, okay? Oh, homework. I love you so much, and I have some homework for you. That's how much I love you. Your homework assignment for today is to make your grit thought journal. But basically, what you're going to do is build your default grit model for gritty, radical self-love. So the model, right, we're going to plug in a circumstance. And that circumstance is going to be when the going gets tough. So no matter what you do, every once in a while, something's going to happen where the going gets tough. And I want you to just imagine in that model, when the going gets tough, if the personality that comes through you most is that gritty, radical self-lover that you are. And I want you to just get into that place where you love on yourself so much and the going gets tough. What thoughts are you having? Those are your grit thoughts. How do you feel about you, about the situation? Now remember, if you're in radical self-love, you're telling yourself, this is okay. I've got this no matter what. We can do this. We can do hard things. How do you feel when you're saying that to yourself? Those are your gritty feels, y'all. What actions do you take? Your grit actions. And what results would you get in life if you tuned into that over and over and over? And when the going got tough, you went into radical self-love. That was your model. Bring your models to class on Sunday, y'all. I can't wait to talk about it. I love you so much. Let's get gritty, radically self-lovey with it. So good. Toodaloos.